Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Welcome to another 2023 Project Orchids, going out on the regular day of Friday. Now, the Zygopetalum Louisendorf was actually the second most popular plant to have in the Project Orchids in the voting. It's starting a bit different because instead of sort of starting with looking at the plant and what I expect from it, the first thing I'm going to do is repot it because it needs doing now. It's one of the plants that's high on my list because it's got the cocoa husk in it. And looking at the details for this, I got this back in June 2021 as a replacement plant because the previous one died. And it was repotted within the first couple of weeks after getting it. So the cocoa husk has been in there since June 2021 and has probably gone off by now. So let's get it out of the pot and see what we've got. What we've got is a lot of new growths, new roots growing. So if you look at this, this one actually produced 2 spikes, one out of the top and one out of the side, the traditional place. It didn't swell the bulb up very much after it finished blooming, but that probably took a lot of life out of that bulb. But we've got some new roots starting and it's highly likely a new growth will come out of there soon. Now at the other end of the plant we do have a new growth that's starting and has got quite a lot of root activity going on. So this is a pretty good time to think about repotting it. Now the golden rule when repotting zygos is minimal root handling. And we'll see how much we can get away with. The idea is to not touch, bend and bruise the roots because they are very fragile and you might not think you're doing damage, but you probably are. So I'm going to see how much of this I can get to fall out. Right, well initially we've got an almost solid lump on the base of the plant. The reason being it was cropped with this rock hard bark. And that's, with all the roots that have gone down there, has turned into an almost solid lump. So damage is going to happen down here. These roots are rotten. They're in the soggy bottom of the pot, which shouldn't have happened with that large bark, but it obviously has. And the main reason is obviously the damp in the pot sinks downwards and it is staying too damp too long with stale water because of the cocoa husk. Now we're getting back to where there might be some reasonable roots now. I'm just going to gently squeeze this and see how much of it I can get to fall off without going mad. As I said, it does seem to have quite a lot of roots. And if I do damage some of these roots and they don't make it, we've got some new ones coming, but it would be nice not to lose all the old ones. Now obviously I'm doing a bit of bashing around with the roots at the moment, but if I want to get this cocoa husk out, what other choice have I got? You know, I've just got to find little gaps where I can just gently, I've got to get as much of it out as possible. The more I leave in there, the more it's going to go off and turn the new media off. And there is a large amount of cocoa husk in here. And it does smell like a mushroom factory. I think it's gone beyond its limitations. Unfortunately, it really is bound to the roots. You might have to just put up with quite a lot of these roots getting bashed around. I daren't leave a load of this cocoa husk in there, I daren't. It's just going to turn the new media off. But somehow or other it's got to come out. Well, you can see that it obviously grew a massive root system with the cocoa husk, so you can't say it was the wrong media, but it does go off. It does turn very acidic and can destroy root systems if not dealt with, and it's now turning out to be a right pain to get out to replace. So yes, it might have been a good choice to get a good root system to grow, but for the long-term future of the plant I'd say no, because it makes repotting almost impossible without serious root damage. And you can't leave it in there, it goes off. So those are your choices. Obviously it's generated a beautiful root system, you certainly can't complain about that. This is a solid mass of roots. How many of these are going to survive the repot, I don't know. Now what I'm thinking about now is if I repot that like that, I'm going to bury some of those central... Do you know, I don't know whether I've got 2 plants here, but I think I want 2 plants. These are little seedling bulbs in here. I think I'm going to split this. Now it may have already been 2 plants, I don't know. It may have been. So much for not damaging the roots. I'm just going to have to sacrifice them and hope that the new ones are going to replace what's gone. There's just no other way of doing it. You just can't get the media out. Now there's still some good roots here. Not totally destroyed. But all these, I mean a lot of these are rotten. Not very good at all. So what I'm going to do with this piece is I'm going to trim it. All these dangly little stringy bits, they're going to come off. And this is going to go in a small pot where it can dry out quickly in between waterings. I mean these rots here are rooted. More coffee. Well that's why this is going not very well, because we haven't actually got a cup of coffee with this. A fatal mistake. I'm just taking off those that are obviously soggy and rotted, and it's mainly on the old bulbs, which is what you'd expect. And we've got some good new ones coming. And hopefully they're going to grow on in some nice new fresh media. Right, that'll do for that piece. Sheaths could do with coming off. Not so much as a big deal as it used to be now, because I think I'm on top of the scale. I think I've just dealt with them really, and there's no sign of any on this plant, that's for sure. Right, so we've got nice new growth, we've got some new root activity to replace the old. One last piece there. And that can go in a very small pot. I'm not going to put these pieces back in the same pot, because to get them in the same pot I would need to plant them at the wrong angle, and I mean that unfortunately is virtually separate, so let's separate it and start again. Now that's the old part of the plant. The chances are if I potted that it might actually shoot out. But we've already got 2. And if I put them in the same pot, the pot will need to be too big and the media will stay wet too long, which I don't want to do. Because on this one, out of what's left, there's not quite so many dead ones this time, but there are some. Right, so there we go. Now that one hasn't got a new shoot yet, but it's showing signs of new root growth at the base of this previously bloomed growth, where hopefully we should get, you can see all the new roots starting there. So this is going to grow on now. So we've got 2 pieces. I mean, these bulbs are quite shriveled. The chances are it would force a new growth out if I potted that. But what am I going to do with this? Well, those wouldn't be, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Not worth the struggle to bring on back bulbs. let's concentrate on what we've got. So I'll have a quick clear up, we'll have a quick put this in a pot and decide, you know, I'll explain the media I'm going to use and why, so I'll be back. Okay, we've got two pots, I'm going to pot them separately. They're not as small as I at first sort of in my mind thought of, because you have to bear in mind what sort of root system we've just dealt with. It was pretty extensive. It actually filled that pot. So there has to be room to generate a reasonable root system. Now the failing on this has been leaving that in its pot too long, because although it generated a really good root system, obviously over that period of time that cocoa husk has gone off, and that was the demise of the roots, because there were far too many dead roots for a healthy plant. If that plant had still been growing well, then a lot of those roots would have still been alive and far more healthy, and therefore would have made it easier to repot. So it's been left in the pot too long, and I've got a list now that I've got to deal with of all the plants that have been potted up since I started using that cocoa husk, and I've got to go through the process of looking at the dates to prioritise them, those that have had the cocoa husk the longest. And you have to bear in mind that this was potted up in the old place, and it was potted up to grow on as a vigorous plant using the heat and the light to generate that extra vigour in the plant. Yeah? I can't do that anymore. I've now got to pot it up based on the fact that I've got cooler temperatures, and it won't be as vigorous. So let's see what we can do then. And once we've got them in the pots, we'll choose which one we're going to have as the project plant. And I don't think it'll be this one, it'll be the other one with the new growth, because that makes more sense. The mix I'm using is everything I've got. It's small, medium and my larger bark, all mixed in together with some grow stones and a bit of charcoal. And that's what I'm using. I'm going to pop this quite deep and gently. And the fact that I've got two pots to do, I haven't mixed up anywhere near enough. So how are we doing then? I want the bulbs just underneath the surface, and I am going to press down the sides to make that reasonably firm to hold the plant, and that's not where the roots are, so I'm not doing any root damage by compacting that. I think we might need a stake. Yes, we will. It's because of the long floppy leaf. Right, so what have we got down here? That'll do. Now all I want to do is hold one of the bulbs. So I'll pick the oldest one, stick the stake down there, and then what we'll do is we'll just put a clip round there to hold it against the stake. What do we want then? Something like that. That makes it firm now, and the new roots are going to have some little stuff around them so that they can now grow down into the pot. So that pot looks too big. These are capable of generating really good root systems, so give them the room to do it. And unfortunately I've used up most of my... There certainly isn't enough there to do another pot, I don't think. Well, you never know. So with this one, we've got a better root system coming, yeah, and a new growth to follow on. I'm going to take that leaf off because it interferes, excuse me, with the new growth. That's that charcoal dust, I bet. Right, so that's what we've got. really is bad. No, take it off. It looked all right when I was going over them, but it isn't. And oh, that dude could fiddle around with this forever. Get them out of the way, otherwise they'll go in the pot. Right, let's see what we can do then. And again, you know, the new growth needs to be in the centre of the pot so that it's got plenty of room to expand. Just about enough. Yeah, it's really good. And the beauty of having a bark mix with no soggy organics like moss or the cocoa husk is that I can pot the bulbs a little bit deeper, because the bark will never stay soggy until it starts getting old enough that it needs replacing anyway. So I've just got a couple of really big bits near those new roots, and I'd rather have the new roots going into smaller stuff. So, there we go. And this one will stay up on its own, so this doesn't need staking. Again, I'll just do a little bit of compression down the side, just to make sure it's firm. You have to bear in mind, zygo hybrids, it's difficult to tell what you're up against, because some zygos grow at the tops of trees as real, genuine, serious epiphytes, and others grow down in the leaf litter and the sogginess on the ground and are, well, at least semi-terrestrial, if not full terrestrials. And when you've got hybrids, you don't know what your mix is. So is it a bright light? Is it a shady? You know. Anyway, this is the one we will keep as our project orchid, simply because we've got a new growth to monitor that may actually throw a spike. It depends how quickly those new roots get going and put some vigour back into the plant. But it's got a lovely big bulb there and a couple of extra back bulbs to back up that new growth with some new roots. So I think it should push on quite well. And we will revisit in 2 months' time to see how well it's doing. And with any luck, we should see nice new roots growing down there. And this up here somewhere, with possibly some leaves coming out the top. Whether it blooms or not, I don't know. Well, that we'll have to wait and see. That would be a bonus, but I don't mind if it doesn't. Keeping the plant going has not been as easy as I was expecting because of that tangled mess called the root system, most of which was dead. Too long in the pot, and in these cooler temperatures staying too wet because it had the cocoa husk that was starting to go off and holding far too much moisture for the temperatures I've currently got. So there we go, that's that one done. See you next time. Bye for now.